How to stop Robo-Calling, a hacker bounty, and happy birthday, Microsoft. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 409 for Monday, August 24th, 2015. This episode of Tech News Tonight is brought to you by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. With one simple integration, you can offer your customers every way to pay. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to braintreepayments.com/technight. Welcome, I am Megan Morrone. Let's get to the tech news. The Ashley Madison hack continues to frighten and confound users and onlookers. The company is now offering a $500,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the hackers who revealed user data online. That's 500,000 Canadian dollars, which is only 380,000 American dollars. Either way, I say too little, too late. Meanwhile, over at the FTC, appeals court has confirmed the Federal Trade Commission's authority over corporate data security practices. The Wall Street Journal says that the Philadelphia-based Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled today that the commission has the power to bring enforcement against companies who fail to take reasonable steps to deter hackers. The FTC says they can pursue these cybersecurity cases as part of a 1914 law that gives them the power to prohibit unfair and deceptive acts or practices in or affecting commerce. And speaking of the FTC, a new technology called Robo-Killer has been awarded a $25,000 grant from the Federal Trade Commission after winning the Robocalls Humanity Strikes Back competition that took place at DEF CON. Robo-Killer uses consumer-controlled white and blacklist filtering to send robocalls to a spam box that you can access at any time. It looks like we have not lost the battles against the robots yet. Now, if we've learned anything over the last few weeks, it's that words on the internet live forever. Or do they? A network of about 30 websites called PolitWhoops used Twitter's API to automatically archive tweets that politicians deleted. Today, The Verge reports that Twitter suspended API access to these sites late last week. When asked about the suspension, a representative from Twitter said that archiving tweets that have been deleted goes against the social network's rules and that the decision to suspend access was made only after thoughtful internal deliberation. The U.S. version of PolitWhoops was closed in June. Last week's closure affects dozens of other countries. Coming up after the break, I will be thrilled to talk to Alex Blumberg of Gimlet Media, formerly of This American Life. But first, this episode is brought to you by Braintree, code for easy online payments. Now, people used to say that everyone has one novel in them. Now, if they take the time, they could just write it. Now, I think it's more true that everyone has just one mobile app in them. If you're a mobile app developer, you can get help from Braintree. Braintree is the payment solution used by companies like Uber, Airbnb, Hotel Tonight, Living Social, and many, many others. Braintree scaled with these successful companies from early stage startups to the successful companies they are today. So Braintree can scale with your business too. Braintree has made the payment experience in these apps seamless and magical, and now you can add a similar experience to your own app. They have excellent customer service, very simple integration. Braintree will get you ready to receive payments quickly. And Braintree's continuous support plus fast payouts helps solve the problem of mobile cart abandonment. They also offer a best-in-class mobile checkout experience. So check it out for yourself. Braintree gives you a full-stack payment solution, support for all payment types your customers might want. So right now, you can start accepting PayPal or Apple Pay, Bitcoin, Venmo, cards, and more, all with a single integration across all platforms with superior fraud protection, customer service, and fast payouts. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to braintreepayments.com/technight. Our guest today is Alex Blumberg, co-founder of Planet Money, former producer on This American Life, and now the co-founder and CEO of Gimlet Media, a network focused on narrative podcasts. Welcome, Alex.
Great to be here, Megan.
So you started Gimlet just about a year ago. You must be coming up on your anniversary, or just past your anniversary. How's it going so far?
It's going really well. We have about 21 people now, and we have plans to hire a couple more. We have 3 shows up. They're all leaders in their category, in their podcast category. We have a couple more shows that we're going to launch by the end of the year, and then we have more shows coming up the following year, and we're just more shows all the time.
You seem even a little surprised at your success.
I'm a little startled. Like, I feel like I still can't sort of believe it. It seems like, just yesterday that we were it was just me and Matt, and we were like, is anybody going to write a check for our company that exists only in our minds? And now it very much exists. It's like funny because like I knew this was like, you would go and talk to these investors and they could see it very clearly. Like, this is the thing that happens, people come out and they sort of like pitch us for money, and then we invest the money, and then boom, they're up and running, and they have offices, and they have to come up with like, corporate mission statements and all that sort of stuff. And it was just so hard to believe, but now here we are. And we have to move office space, and we have to hire. We have to come up with a corporate mission statement. Literally, I'm going to do a podcast about
it. Good problems to have.
Yeah,
So
totally.
The main difference between Gimlet and your former career is that now you're in charge. And Gimlet's kind of more of a tech company than NPR was, or This American Life was. Now, how were you prepared or not prepared for the tech side of this business?
Oh, well, I mean, I hope you don't want to kick me off the podcast because if I say this, but we're really not a tech company at all.
What?
We have 20. I think of all those employees, we have something like 21 employees, and they're pretty much all editorial. We're very much like an old school media company, and so in a certain way, like it's similar to my old jobs. It's similar to working at Planet Money, just like more shows and more people. In another way, it's like entirely different and crazy. Like where, like there's no parent company to support you. There's no, you don't feel part of this larger thing. It's just sort of like you and your little ship out on the ocean alone.
It's weird that you would say like that a podcast company or a company that streams only on the internet. I guess we've reached the stage where that's no longer considered a tech company.
Well, I think it's like, I mean, obviously tech is involved, but we're not building the tech and we're not creating the tech. You know what I mean? I think of it as sort of like, I've been thinking a lot about this because this was a big issue in the beginning of sort of like, do we want to marry technology and the content that we're creating and sort of do them both at the same time? And we sort of went back and forth, and I did some podcasts about it on Startup, and we ultimately decided that like starting a company is so much about focus, and like you can just get lost when you're trying to do too many things at once. And what we're good at is content, and like that was what we raised a seed round. That's what we had the money for, and that's what the market really wants right now. Like there's just the content that we produced was so much more successful than we thought it was going to be, both in terms of revenue that it was generating and in terms of listeners, audience numbers that we were generating, that it just felt like, well, that is clearly where the opportunity is. And, the technology exists, it's never been easy, it's free you press a button and you're up on SoundCloud and on Stitcher and on Spotify and on iTunes, and you have billions of listeners that you have access to instantaneously. So, and that's all because of like quite amazing technology that we had no hand in creating, but we are very much happy to exploit.
So the idea of creating an app or, doing that's kind of, you're done with that. You're more focused on just the content at this point.
I think we're done with it. We're done considering it at this stage. Like right now, what seems very clear is that there is there's a demand for the kind of content that we're making, and we just need to make more of it. And we need to solve a bunch of other problems, which are, where do we find the talent to produce these podcasts? How do we create a piloting system that we can sort of like bring them into production and get them up and get them listened to? How do we build a system around our advertising? Sort of to make that work more smoothly. But these are all sort of like institutional organizational issues that we're dealing with. We don't have plans to build an app right now. I can imagine down the road where like if for our members, say for our paying members, like we create an app that sort of helps us serve them better, but it would be more, I think it would be more specialized and not like sort of like the a big solving all the problems of podcasting app that people talk about.
Right. It was interesting in the episode of Startup where you talked to Marco Arment, and he kind of talked you out of it because he'd done one himself. I thought that was a really interesting moment because I wasn't sure if he wasn't really trying to talk you out of being in that space because he was already in that space, or if he just really thought it wasn't a good idea for you guys to get in that space.
Well, I can't, I mean, that kept happening. That wasn't just Marco. Marco was like one of many people technologists who we spoke with, who were like, you guys should definitely not build an app. And like enough people who know tell you that, and you're like, well, maybe they have a point here, you know? And like, and I mean, to me, what I took away from it is sort of like, everything about, you just sort of like, you build a company, you start a company, and as hard as you think any one thing is going to be, you know, multiply it by 10, and it's that hard. Like every single thing you do is a very considered decision. You're trying to do something sort of new, otherwise you wouldn't be, you know, there wouldn't be the opportunity. So anytime you do something new, you have to just sort of like iterate and try to figure out like, is this the right new thing or is this the right new thing? And like, I think if you look at what makes successful companies successful, it's execution. And we were just not in a position, we don't have anybody, we would have to, first of all, hire a CTO. I don't know how to, I'm not involved in that world at all. I'm like, then hopefully that had to be a great hire because then they would have to hire a whole team and then they would have to build this excellent technology that they would have to execute on. And, you know, it just wasn't in our core competency at all to do that.
So one of your biggest investors is Chris Sacca, or was Chris Sacca. Was he pushing for the tech side of it?
He was not actually pushing. His partner, Matt Mazzio, pushed a little bit on the tech side. But I think that was more out of a feeling that, you know, like I understood it. You know what I mean? It makes it seem like, you know, you start going out and you're talking to Silicon Valley about podcasting, and podcasting has this sort of like Wayne's World, you know, sort of association to it, where it's like it always will sort of seem like, you know, two dudes in their basement talking about something, and it just was like hard for people to conceive of it being sort of like a large scale media business like Vice or BuzzFeed or something like that, which are models that sort of like, you know, somebody can look to and say like, oh yeah, that became $1 billion business. It was hard for me to see it, frankly. Like it's hard for me to see it still. Like, you know, I'm like talking these big numbers, but now it's like, certainly it's like you don't have to be on crack to sort of see that as like a possible outcome, you know, and so I think it made sense for them to sort of say like, well, this could be big, but especially if you pair it with technology, because there's going to be a lot of user-generated content and there's all this sort of thing. And I was in there talking about like, no, I want to be the HBO of podcasting, meaning I really want to spend tons of money making shows. That felt really weird to them. Now that it's sort of proved out a little bit, it makes a little bit more sense. But Chris Sacca was always like, he told us at one point, like, focus wins. And like focusing on what you're the best at is probably a good strategy if you're starting a company. And like we are definitely not the best at building an app. We are the best at making, you know, sort of high quality narrative podcasts, I think.
Well, it's interesting that, you know, people use the word podcast, you know, just to describe as if it's one thing, which it's obviously not. I think of it as TV. Like there's Fox News and there's The Wire. You know, those are obviously not, you know, what we do versus what you do, which is totally
And then
different.
if you add YouTube to that, there's YouTube also. And there's like, you know, like vacation, you know, videos on YouTube. And if like, that's the spectrum of podcasts, I think too, like from like Game of Thrones all the way down to sort of like, I saw this funny squirrel on Trafalgar Square, you know, and like everything in between. And that's the world of podcasts too. And people they never ask you, do you watch TV? You know, they ask what TV shows do you watch, you know, but people still ask, do you listen to podcasts? And it's sort of like, I think in the future that will be a more and more ridiculous question as like, sort of like, as it becomes a more mature medium. And, you know, you understand there's like, you know, there's the Radio Labs and there's the startups and there's the Reply Alls of the world. And then there's other ones which are sort of like much more sort of like narrowly focused about like, you know, whatever, you know, knitting or whatever. And all of those, I'm not at all like a snob about this. I don't like, I think they all have like, I love them all. Like a lot of the ones that I listen to are 2-hour long sort of like, you know, basketball podcasts that I love, you know. but if what you're trying to build a business on, I think we need to do podcasts that have a little bit more mass appeal than some of the narrowly targeted ones.
So you've mentioned your subscription model earlier. Describe how that works.
That works with you pay us a little bit of money once a month, or you can pay upfront for the year, $60 for the year, and you get a couple things. You get a T-shirt, and then you get access to the shows that we're piloting. And we're excited about this because, we feel like it's an opportunity for like the people who are sort of like our core fans who have sort of been with us from the beginning, or sort of just really excited about it, really excited about the product, to be in on sort of like the creation process. We are constantly developing new shows. We are constantly coming up with pilots. And like when you join and you become a member, you get to hear them first, long before anybody else hears them. And then we also we have a bunch of sort of mystery stuff for our members. Like we're constantly sending out fun things for them, little surprises that are in their inbox. And this is something that we are going to be developing more and more. I think I'm really excited about it. I feel like this kind of engagement with that layer of audiences is really exciting.
So your flagship show, Startup, focused on your company as you were developing it. And the second season focused on Dating Ring. We had the co-founders on our show.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, and they were great. So how difficult is it to find startups willing to be so candid with you just as their business is starting up?
Well, we're going to find out. We are now in the middle of the hunt for the season 3 company. And I think it's like always a little bit difficult. There's certain people who are just more private than other people. But, I think that there are people, I've been a journalist my whole life. Like, being a journalist is entirely dependent on finding people who are willing to share their story. And there's no shortage of people who are willing to share their story. And especially if what you can do is promise that you're going to tell it in a non sort of like ridiculous and sensationalist way, but you're going to like ask hard questions and tell the real thing, but you're not going to be, out to get anybody or anything like that, then people are much more likely to do it. Also, it helps that I modeled it for people. We really did sort of air the most embarrassing sort of like craziest moments of, that first year. And it was scary, very scary. But ultimately it was like really helpful for us. And I think it is helpful to sort of like, sort of like talk about this stuff in public. Like, it actually does sort of help you sort of like confront it for yourself. And I think it made us a stronger company for it. So I think that helps too. The fact that we're just like, we don't just talk the talk, we've actually done it ourselves, and we'll continue to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, traditional journalism, you said you'd been a journalist your whole life, but I think now people are getting a little more nervous. Things get wildly circulated very quickly. I know I go to a lot of comedy shows, and they're like, they don't even want anyone recording anything anymore because people will take things out of context. And so you're really providing, a lot of fodder. So I wonder if you've talked to companies that are afraid of just having what they're saying being taken out of context and spread out quickly everywhere while they're trying to build up their company.
That's a concern, and then there's like proprietary information that being a concern. Like, sure, lots of companies have those concerns. We wouldn't. I think we're sensitive to that too. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like we're just going to be like, you say something controversial, be damned. Like, we're, like we understand, we're in the media, we understand how the media works, and we don't want to like to subject somebody to some sort of like crazy media storm because of something that they happen to say on our podcast. That hasn't happened to anything that we've done. I feel like it's weird, like, I don't know, something about the medium of audio, it's like harder for it to sort of like go weird viral that way. But I'm sure it could happen. Maybe it'll happen right now. Maybe I'll say something. Maybe I've said something already that will just like blow up in my face. Yeah.
Well, it's one of my favorite. I loved listening to Startup. It was great because, but that is the business that I'm in. There was that part that was interesting. Just the tech part was interesting because in the beginning you were more of a tech company. But one of my favorite parts was how much time you devoted to the work-life balance. You have kids. Your wife has a busy career. Like, I felt those were the most poignant moments of the first season. You decided to start your own company. You left a really stable, great job. There was a lot of stress. Describe the difference between working for Planet Money and This American Life, which I would have thought were already busy, kind of crazy jobs, but seemed not so compared to going out on your own. Describe the difference between those two.
Yeah, the difference is just sort of like, it's like every concern is my concern now. Whereas before, there was parts that weren't my concern. Like, I didn't have to worry about revenue, at Planet Money or at This American Life. But like, other people worry about that. I didn't have to worry about HR. I didn't have to worry about hiring. I didn't have to worry about I had to worry about team cohesion on the team of people that I was, sort of managing at Planet Money, but I didn't have to worry about it sort of like company wide. So just every other part of sort of running a organization. The other thing I didn't have to worry about sadly, which is sort of why I left, I didn't have to worry about sort of managing a rapidly growing organization and sort of like, how do you move from one phase to the next? And that is also just sort of like something that's very, very, sort of hard to surf. So I think that the amount of time I was at the office was, I was at the office less, but I wasn't at the office like that much less. Like, I'm not working 80 hours a week or anything like that. Like, I have kids. I see them on the weekend. I see them at night. I'll right as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go home and put my kids to bed. But like, I don't ever stop thinking about it. I think about it at night. I think about it when I wake up. I dream about it. And that's the difference. It's just like always present. And like, every once in a while, like sort of like anxiety will rise up and seize me in a way that didn't happen at those other jobs.
Well, I totally stole this next question from a talk that you gave on interviewing. I'm going to ask you anyway. What would the Planet Money host say to the co-founder of Gimlet Media?
Oh, that's a good one. The Planet Money Alex Blumberg would definitely say, do it, like, for sure. Like, there's the, like, I think I had more reservations than I even needed to have. I like, and who knows, like a year from now, like maybe we're in some weird podcast bubble and like this is going to be my own personal tinypets.com moment here. But to me, it just feels like I'm so excited to be doing this. And it just feels like, the beginning of, like, I see a future where podcasts look like the TV landscape, where there's, tons of large companies that are putting them, that we're up there among the largest. We've got lots and lots of fantastic programming, and just sort of like the way that we're sort of going through this golden age of scripted, fiction and television. And there's just like, there's like lots of really interesting reality shows and lots of interesting, just like tons of interesting stuff happening on TV. I see that happening in podcasting, and it's just so exciting and freeing to be part of that and helping to build it. It just feels like, more exciting than when I started. So I'd have been like, yeah, don't worry, do it. You're doing the right thing. Go, go, go.
That's a good, inner voice to have.
Yeah.
So your most recent show that's up and available is Mystery Show, which is hosted by Starlee Kine. She has been a favorite of mine for a long time. And so, and I love it. I listen to it with my whole family, and we are just riveted whenever we have long car rides. And I saw this picture, Mystery Show, she solves a mystery just that you can't solve on the internet, that, you just, and it's just fascinating the tangents that she goes on, and she really is, to me, like the story, and how interested she is in it. But I do have, as long as I have you, I saw a picture. Today is the 20th anniversary of Windows 95. There was a picture online of a kid with Bill Gates glasses carrying a big stack of Windows 95 boxes. And I just want to know if, Starlee, could you please let her know? And I will also tweet this to her because I have access to Twitter. There's the picture. We're showing in the audio version. Because I want to know where that picture was taken 20 years ago. And I wonder, do you think she could find out where that kid is today and whether he's succeeded with his Windows 95?
So I am also, like, I want to say I am very fascinated by this as well. Like, I'm like curious, like I really am curious to see, you can't look at that picture and like not wonder like, okay, who did that kid grow up to be? However, you will like, and this is something that like we wrestle with a lot, which is like, what is the actual definition of a mystery versus like a compelling question? And I would say, like, for a mystery, like, I think what we've decided is that like there needs to be like a personal connection, because I think that's what makes these that's what makes them sing, as if the person posing the mystery has like some kind of personal connection. So do you have a personal connection to this?
Well, this guy that I know tweeted it. Is that enough?
Done. It's on.
Well, okay. So what I need to do is track down the kid and then find out something else, whether he uses an iPhone or not, maybe.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's hard to like, it's like, if like you went to school with the kid or something like that, and then like the last thing or something like that, it's like hard to like, or if it means something to you, if like I was a version of that kid myself and I just want to know, like I know how I ended up and I wonder how he ended up, something like that. Like the personal connection doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be super strong, but there just has to be, like the last episode, the Welcome Back Kotter episode, it wasn't like Jonathan had ever been on Welcome Back Kotter or anything. It was just this show that he loved very deeply and quoted. And so that's enough of a personal connection.
Right.
So,
yes, he saw the Welcome Back Kotter lunch boxes also.
Yes, exactly. We veered off the rails into like nobody knows what we're talking about.
Right.
Anymore.
Well, you can download
Mystery
it.
Show, folks.
You can get
Go ahead.
Yes.
Check it out. Download it on iTunes.
And by the way,
yes, as long as we're talking about the show, I'm going to mention our other show, Reply All, which is a show about the internet, which is our third show along with Startup.
Yes, it is excellent. And also, I want to say thank you. I think you might have implied that I was as old as that child in 1995. So if you did imply that, I thank you, because
I did not imply that at all. I was just talking hypothetically.
No, that was a compliment. I graduated from college in 1995, so I was not the same age as that guy. So thank you.
Then yes, I did imply that.
Right.
Hopefully.
Well, Alex Blumberg, thank you so much for joining us. Alex is the CEO of Gimlet Media, which is at Gimlet Media on Twitter, we're pretty sure. Thank you so much. And go to gimletmedia.com and you can download the 3 shows. And then you guys have one more show that's on the way. Have you announced that yet, or just to subscribers?
We have announced it. We announced it. Yes, it's like, I think it's public. It's a show that tentatively titled Awesome Boring, and it's Adam Davidson and Adam McKay, the director and creator of like the Anchorman series of movies. And they basically they take something that seems like it would be boring and they reveal that it's secretly awesome.
That's what I try to do every day also.
Exactly.
Thank you,
so I hope
Alex.
we've succeeded.
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining me.
All right, thanks.
Go put your kids to bed.
All right, take care.
Take care. And finally, happy birthday, Windows 95. As I said, 20 years ago today, Microsoft released Windows 95 and changed computing forever. This was also the same year that Bill Gates predicted the shining future of the internet. To celebrate the milestone, Microsoft is giving away the song Start Me Up by the Rolling Stones. And if you're as old as I am, you remember that Start Me Up was the song that appeared in all of Microsoft's ubiquitous advertising. And if you're not as old as me, then you probably already know that Start Me Up is available to stream for free in Spotify or Apple Music, but you can download it from the Windows Store for free until 11:59 p.m. tonight. And that is it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/technewstonight. You can also subscribe to the show in all the places, iTunes and TuneIn, Stitcher. Also, you can go to twit.tv/TN2. You can write to us at TN2@twit.tv. And of course, you can watch live right here every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today, every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Megan Morrone. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.